Hi guys, we are looking at John chapter 13 as we have been the past few days, and I'm looking at verses 34 through 38 today. And so we have just seen Jesus eating his last Passover meal with the disciples. We saw him identify Judas as his betrayer, and he has spoken to his disciples about his imminent departure. And so he's counseled them to do what? To love one another, and he has instructed them that their love would indeed be the identifying factor, that they are his, that they are like him. That's how the world will know them, is by their love for one another, their love for one another. And so he calls them to love one another just as I have loved you, is what he says. And that's what Jesus chose to tell his best friends during one of their last conversations on earth. That is his foremost command. Save the one to love God for all of us, always. And if we do indeed love God, the love for one another will prove it so, and vice versa, okay? So, loving other people seems noble and right and just and real. Yes, Sonny.
What is this caramel?
That's milk. It's milk.
Caramel.
Sorry. I have a 3-year-old. Okay, so loving other people seems noble and right and just and real. And it feels good and natural until we love others with absolute, reckless, love-soaked abandon, and they fail to love us back. They fail to reciprocate that love. And so then it gets more difficult, right? That's where our faith is really tested. And anyone who's done so can tell you as much. So, for me personally, sometimes I get into these, nerdy theological modes, and I use my big words, and I forget about being more relatable, I guess. And so I kind of wanted to approach this particular post in a more personal way, just because it was extremely personal to me. And I did some soul searching over the past couple days. And my thoughts, poured over memories and mistakes and grief and misery, and just, I think God spoke to me, through my tears and sadness, as I wondered, what am I doing wrong? Because I don't feel that love returned in so many relationships. And, the still small voice that, we hear when we hear from God, it just said to me, what if it doesn't matter? What if it doesn't matter if they love you back? Now, here we have the example of Jesus saying that it matters most that we love one another. But what if it doesn't matter to me if my love is returned? Okay, what if it doesn't matter if those you pour your love into don't pour it back, right? What if we stopped making that our main focus, right? What if I stopped? What if it stopped mattering? What if I did my side and my end of the deal as it pertains to love, and then I just sat still and knew that he was God, right? What if, when it isn't reciprocated, I stop letting it bring me down? And what if the polar opposite of love was returned, and I stopped letting that bother me too? What if I remembered to consider that an honor and a privilege, right? What if I saw persecution and personal attacks as ample evidence that God is indeed being glorified through me? What if instead of saying how unfair things are, I began to say, glory, right? Glorified like Jesus did when he was facing the utmost trouble and terrible circumstances. Glory to God, though. Glory to God for revealing his truth to me this day in this, right? And so, what if I could just love them anyway? Like Jesus said to, right? Like he told me to. Well, like he told his disciples to. And like he did, right? Like he did. I mean, even Judas, he loved and honored to the very end. And even in the preceding chapter, it says that Jesus loved his disciples to the end. Like, do I do that? Am I doing that? And maybe that's my problem. Like, maybe if instead of faulting others for their lack of love toward me, that I would see the flaw in my own love toward them. And so what if the response to my love isn't my business and it isn't my problem? And that's the flaw in my love, is that I love people in as much as they respond with love, and when they don't, it troubles me. And that's the flaw in my love. And I think that's what God was saying to me. That what if that just stopped mattering and stopped grieving me, and I just learned how to love without expectation of reciprocation? I don't know. But I read on, and John 13:36 through 38 records a short dialogue between Peter and Jesus just after Jesus announced his soon departure to his disciples here at this dinner. And so Peter asks where he's going. Like, Lord, where are you going? He doesn't understand what Jesus is saying. Jesus is going to die. He's going to the cross. And Peter doesn't get it. And so Jesus tells him once again that he cannot follow right now, but one day he will. And of course, Jesus was pointing to the fact that Peter was going to be crucified too, upside down, I think. And but right now was not the time for Peter to be following in that crucifixion. And Peter doesn't understand what Jesus is talking about. And he just says, Lord, why? Why? Why can't I follow? Why can't I come? Why, Lord? Why? I don't understand. Doesn't make any sense. Tell me why. And I feel that. I feel that, Peter. Because there are places we want to go and people we want to go with. And God says no. And we say why. Right? Why? And Peter even adds here in his desperation that he is willing to even die for Jesus. But Jesus doesn't tell Peter why. He doesn't answer Peter's pleas to understand. He doesn't. He won't. And then sometimes that's the hardest thing, right? But when Jesus doesn't answer, there's a reason. We're on a need-to-know basis, right? It's called faith. But instead, Jesus turns Peter's weighty profession of, I'll die for you, Jesus. He turns that back on him. And when Peter says, I'll lay down my life for you, Jesus says, will you? Will you? Will you, Peter? No, you won't. You won't even let me leave. Will you let me leave, even? You don't want me to wash your feet. Will you accept the lot that I'm handing to you? The one that makes you less? Will you go forward without the political leader you wanted? Will you do the things I say when you don't understand? Will you? Doesn't seem like it, Peter. Will you do them when I'm not standing right next to you? When it's not what you want? When it's not looking good? When it isn't what you had planned? When it's the most dark? When you will not win in this world by doing so? Because you won't. Not if you follow me, right? When everyone will hate you for it? When there's no Jesus squad with you, will you? Will you? That's what Jesus is asking. Will you, Peter? Because you're saying you will, but you won't. Your actions speak otherwise. And so what is Jesus trying to tell Peter? He's saying you're not ready. You aren't. You aren't ready. You're going to deny me. You will. You don't think you will, but you will. And so Jesus knows his friend better than his friend knows himself. And all Peter can stand around and do is ask why. Stand around asking why. And we do the same thing. I know I do. The same thing that Peter did. Why, Jesus? Why? We don't understand. Tell us. Explain this to us. It doesn't make any sense to us. We need to know why. Why can't we come and go? Where and when and with whom we want to? Why do we so often have to walk what seems like alone, completely alone? Why this and why that? When all the while, Jesus just wants us to see ourselves rightly. He wants us to see ourselves. And the truth is, we are so often simply not ready. We're not ready to see ourselves. We're not ready to follow after Him. We're not ready for suffering. We're not ready for what God is calling us to. But we think we are, because we're like Peter, right? But we will be. We have a hope. We will be when it is finished. When we get to the cross and when we kneel down and when we get there, we will finally understand why He had to go and why we couldn't come with Him. We will be ready when we stop overestimating our own goodness and we stop asking why. And we will be when we start seeing ourselves rightly, when we learn to wash feet instead of wanting our wish lists to win over a God who does whatsoever He pleases. That's when we'll be ready. And we will. But if at this point we're still standing around asking, why Jesus? We just aren't ready yet. And that's what convicted me as I read this. Like, I can identify, so much with Peter, like, just asking Jesus, why this and why that? And why does it have to be this way? And missing the forest for the trees. Like, Jesus is standing there saying, love. That's what I'm commanding you to do. I'm not giving you an explanation. I'm giving you a command, right? And that's what we need to worry about. And we're so often so worried, so overly worried about ourselves. And it's just not what God is calling us to. And that's why we're troubled. Because the very next thing Jesus is going to talk about is let not your hearts be troubled. And I believe this is why. So, anyway, that's my heart for today. I hope it's helpful to you in some way. And I hope you guys have a good day and see you tomorrow. Thanks for listening.